Hello, my name is Rune Fardal. I live in Norway. I study psychology and specialize in narcissistic and psychopathic behavior. Regarding this kind of behavior, we very often see specific what they call psychological defenses. And one of the most complicated ones is the one called projective identification. This one and projection I will try to explain to you today as easy as I can, but it's very complicated behavior connected to this, but we will see how this goes. So here we go. Projection means putting some kind of material from the subject over to the object, and that's it. There is not established any connection or relation. In projective identification, on the other hand, when a material is projected into the object from the subject, it is established a certain kind of relationship between the subject and object. Let's mark a subject's behavior, a trait, as a double-colored red and green man. When the subject is attributing its own behavior to the object in order to get rid of that behavior, it's called projection. A certain kind of material is projected from the subject onto the object. Attributing to others a behavior one has in order to identify with this is called projective identification. Unlike projection, the subject now recognizes the behavior in itself but claims it represents a response to the object. As you can see, this differs from projection because here it's a relation between subject and object. Projected behavioral traits can be low frustration tolerance, emotional instability, aggression, violence, grandiose self, and a lot of other different traits. Let's use aggression as an example. Let's look at projective identification. The subject has features that it cannot identify with because they produce great emotional pain from early trauma. These traits are displaced and or located in nerve structures without conscious access. Examples are traumas infant experience before it develops language. To identify with and relate to these traits, they are projected out and into an outer image of an object, so-called object representation. This object representation is a mental construction of the object, and it's used as a container for traits that the subject's self cannot handle. What happens is splitting, a psychological defense mechanism which prevents simultaneous presence of opposite affective conditions. This kind of projection is done unconsciously, and it moves negative material from the subject outside the subject. What is experienced outside the self is not as threatening as what is experienced inside the subject's self. The object is now assigned to the projected traits. The subject is now claiming the object is aggressive. But remember, the aggression is unconsciously projected from the subject into the object representation. And this representation is the picture the subject has of the object. With other words, this is fantasy. The object now responds to the projected material. No, it's you who are aggressive, not me. The aggression from the subject is now returned from the object. The subject now experiences this aggression as coming from the object. So the subject now claims to be afraid of the object. The subject now identifies with its own aggression. This is projective identification. The subject has traits it can't handle. It projects these traits out into an object representation of the object, and then it uses these traits, blaming the object for being aggressive in this case. Then we have the reaction from the object, and then you have it going. In reality, this is difficult to expose. The subject now identifies with the projected material, here aggression, but claim this is a reaction to the object's aggression. It is no wonder I'm angry, as aggressive as you are. But the object's aggression is actually the subject's projection. This is where we see psychopathology is evolving. For the subject, the projection is unconscious. What is it the environment see? A subject and an object which accuse each other. The object is said to have anger directed at the subject, while the fact is that the ampre atmosphere is anchored in the subject's accusatory attitude. As Masterson put it, the problem is out there, it's what others are doing to me that is so upsetting. The environment don't see the asymmetrical conflict where the object rightfully claims not to have the behavior the subject alleges it has. The environment only see the superficial situation. But as you now can see, there is a lot going on under the radar. And this is why this kind of behavior is so difficult to expose. The object rejects the behavior because it does not possess this behavior. The subject denies this behavior too because for the subject this is unconscious, repressed. This dynamic cannot be seen, and the environment often ends up blaming the object. And why? Because the object's frustration, being blamed for something they are not, often look like aggression. To further complicate this, such subjects often throughout introjective identification steal positive features of the object that is then presented as their own features. So here we have a situation where the object is blamed for something it's not, and the subject presents itself as something it's not. As you can see, this kind of manipulation is very difficult to expose. Judges, psychologists, and child welfare exhibit no or little knowledge of this kind of dynamics, for example in custody cases, and it's typical of narcissists and borderliners. You also find this in psychotic problematics. No wonder miscarriage of justice happen. I have tried here to give you a brief introduction to an extremely complicated defense system of this kind of people. And for those of you who want to know more about this link leads you to a longer article. It's in Norwegian but should be easily translated with Google. Okay, thank you. Yeah, one thing, please feel free to comment on this if you want, and maybe try to avoid projective identification. Thank you.